Please be seated. The Assembly has resumed its sitting. Can you get me our conflict of interest?
Second readings, the Penal Code Amendment Bill 2018, continuation of second reading debate.
Before we get into the second reading, can I call on the Honorable Premier?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move the suspension of Standing Order 10-2 in order that the business of the House may continue beyond the hour of interruption.
The question is that this Honorable House do continue its business after the hour of 4:30. All in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The Penal Code Amendment Bill 2018. Are there any other member wishing to speak? The member from West Bay North.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the Attorney General for his sit down and clarifying some of the issues on this bill. And even though there are some pieces of this bill that I think are still too lenient, the fact that it creates someplace between 7 and 9 new pieces of legislation that offenses is somewhat satisfying, and the fact that they have gone up even still on some of the original years that we saw that was advised. So I will be supporting the bill, but I want it on record. There are still some cases that it is too soft. But 7 to 9 new offenses hopefully will protect our people from these type of people. Thank you.
Is there any other member wishing to speak? Is there another member wishing to speak? If not, I'll call upon the mover for his right of reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I understandably wish to thank honorable members for their debate, and in some instances, may I say, very spirited debate on the bill. Mr. Speaker, I understand how passionate members are about the subject of this bill, and that is quite understandable. We have an obligation, Mr. Speaker, as legislators to protect, as I said, the vulnerable in our society as part of the mandate of members of this legislative assembly. Mr. Speaker, it is evident through some of the debate that I do have an obligation to provide more clarity on exactly the mischief that the government is seeking to address by introducing this bit of legislation. Mr. Speaker, currently under the Penal Code, we have the offenses such as rape, which carries a maximum sentence of up to life imprisonment. We have offenses of defilement of a girl under 12 years old, which carries a maximum sentence of 20 years. We also have, Mr. Speaker, defilement of a girl who is between the ages of 12 and 16 years, and which currently carries a maximum sentence of up to 12 years. Mr. Speaker, we also have the separate offense of indecent assault, including girls or boys under 16 years old, and which currently carries a maximum sentence of 10 years imprisonment. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, we currently have the offense of gross indecency towards a child under the age of 16, and which carries a maximum sentence of 12 years. Mr. Speaker, these are all existing offenses that are currently on the books, are currently in the penal code. This bill, Mr. Speaker, is not dealing with any of these offenses. They remain the same for now, Mr. Speaker, including the sentences. Instead, Mr. Speaker, what this bill in general is seeking to do is to address what sometimes happens before we get to the stage of actual physical contact between the offender and the victim. In other words, Mr. Speaker, we're seeking to address the preparatory process, the preparatory stages before actual physical contact. So, Mr. Speaker, we are looking at the stage where the adult person deliberately started establishing a connection, sometimes a remote relationship, if you will, with the eventual victim in order to gain the trust of that child. Mr. Speaker, this usually happens nowadays by way of the use of social media, online conversation using means such as chat rooms, instant messaging, emails, WhatsApp, text messages, whatever. That's the usual modus operandi. And by this method, Mr. Speaker, the adult is usually able to gain the trust of the child and thereby controlling and, of course, concealing the relationships. The child, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately becomes a cooperating participant, and that reduces the likelihood of disclosure of this manipulative relationship. Yes, Mr. Speaker, one of the objectives of grooming is to manipulate the child into becoming a willing participant, and thereby, Mr. Speaker, reduces the chances of the abuse being detected. So the grooming, Mr. Speaker, also involves the adult talking with the child via social media, including sending or posting of sexually explicit images of either the child or the offender, taking part in sexual activities via webcams or smartphones, and having engaged in these sexual explicit conversations online, Mr. Speaker, they then tend to arrange to meet for the purpose of actual physical sexual contact. So, Mr. Speaker, until recently, countries have regarded sexual grooming and internet-facilitated sexual activities as an element of the actual offending act, such as rape or defilement, instead of its being its own specific offense. But this has now changed, Mr. Speaker. And as we are attempting to do here, many countries, including the USA, the UK, and others, have now enacted legislation to expressly punish the act of grooming as a specific offense, as a standalone offense, Mr. Speaker, in addition to the actual rape or defilement or such other offenses. And so, Mr. Speaker, the legislation seeks to deal with grooming, which in broad terms means actions deliberately undertaken with the aim of befriending and influencing a child for the purpose of eventual sexual activity with that child. These acts, Mr. Speaker, are aimed at establishing an emotional connection in order to lower the child's inhibitions and thereby making it easier to gain access to the child. It therefore, Mr. Speaker, involves the use of a variety of manipulative and controlling techniques in order to establish trust with an overall aim of sexually exploiting that child. Mr. Speaker, in some countries it is called online grooming. In others, it is called electronic solicitation. Mr. Speaker, we have seen at least 3 cases in the Cayman Islands in recent times. According to Mr. Speaker, the sentences reflected in this bill is not for the physical act of sexual assault, but rather for the online solicitations. So, Mr. Speaker, if the bill becomes law, the court will have much wider sentencing options in the sense that, assuming that the adult offender grooms the child over a period of time, and then eventually, having groomed the child, he then met and have sexual intercourse with that child. Whereas currently the court would only treat the preparatory acts, the grooming, as part of the aggravating features of the sexual assault. The court, if this bill is passed into law, will now have the option of punishing that offender, Mr. Speaker, for the grooming. A separate set of sentences for the grooming, and in addition, Mr. Speaker, another set of sentence for the actual defilement, actual sexual intercourse. So 2 sets of sentences. The court will now have that option. And so there's a much wider range of options available to the court in dealing with an offender in these circumstances, Mr. Speaker. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, the bill provides that if you are a person in a position of trust, a person such as a teacher, a foster parent, a trainer, a coach, a supervisor, those sort of persons, a caregiver, and in the course of your role as such, you engage in any of these acts of solicitation for sexual gratification or otherwise, Mr. Speaker, the law, and by extension the court, will register its disgust with such breach of trust by providing that the offender has to go to prison, Mr. Speaker, for a period of at least 4 years if he pleads guilty, or 6 years if he goes to trial. Mr. Speaker, I should indicate here that we are looking at a committee stage amendment that will adjust these number of years, Mr. Speaker. And so we speak to that at the committee stage. And so, Mr. Speaker, if we want to use a case that is one of public knowledge, the Otto Stevens matter, that was widely reported. Mr. Speaker, he was convicted and was sentenced to what all considered was a paltry sentence. But, Mr. Speaker, the court had very limited option in dealing with that case because of the current state of the law. So that was understandable. But, Mr. Speaker, if Mr. Stephen were to be convicted after this bill is passed into law, he would have had to be sentenced to at least 7 years in prison, Mr. Speaker, given that there would be no discernible exceptional circumstances in his case. And he chose to go to trial. So once he's convicted, he would have had to be given at least 7 years imprisonment. This is what this law is seeking to address, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, finally on this matter, well, I shouldn't say finally. In addition to this matter, Mr. Speaker, we are undertaking a wider review of the penal code, Mr. Speaker. And that review includes looking at the current range of sentences, Mr. Speaker, and it is anticipated that the review will also take on board some of the concerns expressed by honorable members, especially, Mr. Speaker, as it relates to some of the current sentences for offenses such as defilement and indecent assault and gross indecency. It is expected, Mr. Speaker, it is anticipated that when this wider review is completed and the government have an opportunity to consider the bill, there will be more deterrent in terms of the type of sentences that will be reflected in that revised bit of legislation, Mr. Speaker. Members have commented repeatedly on some of the sentences that have been handed out in recent times by, even in case of persons, in instances of persons who are in a position of trust. And I think there was one instance of indecent assault where there was one member mentioned to me about a 9 months sentence for that sort of offense. Mr. Speaker, give and take the circumstances, but the review of the penal code, a much wider review which I'm speaking about, will look at instances such as those and make a determination as to whether someone who is in that kind of position, someone who clearly is a person who can exert undue influence on a child, and one who clearly was in a position of trust, should be able to walk away with that type of lenient sentences in the circumstances. Mr. Speaker, no criticism of the courts, I'm just saying we need to look at those because they have been discussed with me, and the question is whether those are issues that can be addressed in the wider review of the penal code. But, Mr. Speaker, I need to make it clear that what we are attempting to do here is to bridge that gap, if you will, that preparatory steps between making contact and actually having actual physical sexual intercourse with someone, with a child, a young child, a minor. And it is that little lacuna that we're trying to bridge here. And Mr. Speaker, because there are no offenses in the penal code that currently deals with those, and representations have been made to us that there is a proliferation, if you will, there's a bit of prevalence in the use of social media to groom minors for sexual gratification, and this is being done by older persons. Mr. Speaker, that has created a bit of immediacy in government seeking to address the issue. And hence, Mr. Speaker, the reason for this bill to ensure that in quick order, that type of offending is addressed, and so that our children, our minors, can be protected, Mr. Speaker, with due haste and be shielded from this sort of behavior. So, Mr. Speaker, we anticipate that with these sentences and the promulgation, Mr. Speaker, of sentencing guidelines, that the government can provide the appropriate deterrence to those sexual predators, Mr. Speaker, those pedophiles, who are minded to exploit children for their own selfish sexual gratification. And, Mr. Speaker, as is always the case, they are quite unmindful, quite oblivious, quite indifferent to the permanent scar, the permanent mental harm that they cause to these children, Mr. Speaker, when they indulge in this type of behavior. Mr. Speaker, I mentioned before that I've had confirmation from the Judicial Department that they are currently working on promulgating guidelines, Mr. Speaker, sentencing guidelines for the range of sexual offenses. And Mr. Speaker, the benefit of having guidelines, sentencing guidelines, is that it tends to bring about, well, not tends to, it brings about a bit of harmonization, if you will, some consistency in the type of sentences that are imposed for like offenses, Mr. Speaker, and where there are like circumstances. So there's less subjectivity, if you will, between different judges. Instead, there's some sort of a harmonization of how sentences are imposed. And so, Mr. Speaker, it's an extremely useful device, if you will, to have in place. And this is being worked on by the Chief Justice and his team. And that will also, Mr. Speaker, in addition to these new offenses, will help to bring about, Mr. Speaker, some sanity, if you will, in terms of how some of these pedophiles, some of these predators, sexual predators, prey upon our minors in the society, Mr. Speaker. And so, again, I commend the bill to honorable members of this House. Of course, Mr. Speaker, there are some committee stage amendments which we will be looking at during the committee stage with a view to adjusting upward some of these sentences that are currently in the draft bill. And so, Mr. Speaker, with those comments, I hope I've clarified in the mind of the public, and certainly for all others, the intent of this bill, Mr. Speaker, the actual mischief that it is aimed at, and that we'll be able to get support in its safe passage. I do thank you.
Question is that a bill shortly entitled the Penal Code Amendment Bill 2018 be given a second reading and passed. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
The Supplementary Appropriation, July 2016 to December 2017, Bill 2018.
The Supplementary Appropriation, July 2016 to December 2017, Bill 2018. The Honorable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the second reading of a bill entitled the Supplementary Appropriation July 2016 to December 2017, Bill 2018.
Does the mover wish to speak to the bill?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, the purpose of this bill is to seek the Legislative Assembly's approval for supplementary expenditure appropriations in respect of the 18-month financial period that ended on the 31st of December 2017. Once an appropriation bill has been approved by the Legislative Assembly, it becomes an appropriation law for a particular financial year, and that law establishes what is commonly referred to as the budget for that financial year. Mr. Speaker, there are three ways in which the budget amounts contained in an appropriation law can be changed during the course of a financial year. Firstly, Section 11, subsection 5 of the Public Management and Finance Law, or the PMFL, allows the Cabinet to make such changes. Secondly, Section 12, subsection 2 of the PMFL allows Finance Committee to approve changes to an established appropriation law. And thirdly, Section 25 of the PMFL permits the Legislative Assembly itself to authorize changes to an already approved appropriation law. Mr. Speaker, the bill before this Honourable House arises in respect of the government's use of Section 11, subsection 5, and Section 12, subsection 2 provisions of the PMFL. Mr. Speaker, Section 11, subsection 6, and Section 12, subsection 3 of the PMFL states that when a government utilizes those sections of the PMFL to make changes to an appropriation law, those changes made by Cabinet or approved by the Finance Committee are to be included in a supplementary appropriation bill which must be presented to the Legislative Assembly. Mr. Speaker, that explains the existence of the bill now before this Honourable House. It satisfies the legal requirement that changes to an already approved appropriation law must be incorporated in a supplementary appropriation bill, and that bill be presented to the Legislative Assembly for its scrutiny and approval. Now before this House is a supplementary appropriation bill with respect to changes that have occurred to an approved budget for the 18-month period from the 1st of July 2016 to the 31st of December 2017. Mr. Speaker, I wish to make a few more additional points. Firstly, the changes set out in the schedule to the bill have already occurred. The changes are processed shortly after they are approved by Cabinet or the Finance Committee under Section 11.5 or Section 12.2 provisions of the PMFL. Secondly, the financial statements submitted to the Auditor General's Office for the 2016-17 financial period will not be affected by the bill because the bill does not impact the actual results already reported in those financial statements. The bill deals with budgeted amounts, not actual results. And thirdly, it is the government's reasonable expectation that given the circumstances explaining the origin of a supplementary appropriation bill, the Finance Committee's consideration of the items in the schedule to the bills will be efficient. Mr. Speaker, this bill indicates changes that can be categorized as follows. One, changes that had to be made to budgets that existed at the 1st of July 2016 in order to reflect the 1st of July 2017 reconfiguration of ministries following the May 2017 general election. As a simple example, on 1st of July 2016, the Post Office was under the ambit of the Ministry of Planning, Lands, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure. But a decision was made following the general election last year that the Post Office would be moved, effective the 1st of July 2017, to the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development. Such changes are reflected in this bill, and there are 10 pages of the schedule to the bill that reflect changes of this nature, which affect the reconfiguration of government, effective 1st of July 2017. Second, there are 2 items on the schedule to the bill that Finance Committee already approved in August 2017. Additional tertiary care expenditure at local and overseas healthcare institutions of $6.3 million and funds for the settlement of an unfortunate case of injury to a young person at a public event in an amount of $4.5 million. These 2 items are found at page 11 of the bill. Mr. Speaker, given that Finance Committee has already approved these 2 matters, I would not expect detailed review thereon again when the bill moves to Finance Committee. And 3, changes are made by Cabinet as it is legally empowered to do under Section 11.5 of the PMFL to effect changes to budgets during the financial period. Mr. Speaker, the government always endeavors to match a request for an increase in expenditure by a corresponding reduction to expenditures, though this is not always possible 100% of the time. Pages 3 to 11 of the bill reflect changes made to the approved 2016-17 budget that were done under the authority of Section 11.5 of the PMFL. There are, Mr. Speaker, some individually significant changes shown on the bill, such as $3.6 million on services for irregular migrants on page 4 of the bill, $8.5 million equity investment in Cayman Airways, shown on page 5 of the bill, of which $1 million was used to repay debt principal earlier than scheduled. $7.1 million was utilized in the recapitalization of Cineco. $6.28 million was provided to the Cayman Islands Development Bank to enable the early repayment of debt. In total, government-approved funds that enable statutory and authorities and government companies to make a total of approximately $10 million of early debt principal repayments in the 18-month period. And $4.8 million was approved to buy a popular, I think the Smith Cove site in Georgetown. Mr. Speaker, the bill consists of 3 main parts. Clause 1 provides the name of the proposed law. Clause 2 speaks to the appropriation authority of the Cabinet, and the schedule to the bill, which show the individual items of appropriation changes that the Legislative Assembly is being asked to approve. Mr. Speaker, it is also important that I point out that not all supplementary appropriations involve expenditure increases. There are a significant number of decreases to expenditures contained in this bill. I therefore respectfully ask all honourable members to support the bill, and I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? If not, call on the mover to wrap up the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to thank members of this House for their tacit support of the bill. Mr. Speaker, when we move into Finance Committee, honourable members will have an opportunity to ask questions with respect to the items on the schedule to the bill. Thank you, sir.
Question is that a bill for a law to appropriate executive financial transactions for the financial period ended 31st of December 2017 be given a second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. The House will now go into committee. Please be seated. House is now in committee, and with the leave of the House, I assume that as usual we would authorize the Honorable Attorney General to correct minor errors as such the like in these bills. Clerk.
The National Honors and Awards Amendment Bill 2018, Clause 1, short titling commencement. Clause 2, amendment of the National Honors and Awards Law 2010, substitution of counselor with premier for premier and counsel for committee.
Yeah. Yes. 1 and 2. Question is that clauses 1 and 2 do stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, the ayes have it. Clause 1 and 2 stands part of the bill.
Clause 3, repeal and substitution of Section 2, interpretation.
There is an amendment to Clause 3.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, sir.
The Honorable Premier.
In accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 52, 1 and 2, I give notice to move the following amendments to the National Honors and Awards Amendment Bill 2018. That the bill be amended as follows. A, in Clause 3, by inserting into the proposed Section 2, in the appropriate alphabetical sequence, the following definition. Award means an award issued under this law. B, in Clause 7 as follows. Roman numeral 1, in the proposed Section 6A, by inserting after the word may, the following words, in the time and manner prescribed. And Roman numeral 2, by inserting after the proposed Section 6B, the following section. Nominations refused. Am I going too far ahead? I'm only at Clause 7. It's only 3? I'm sorry.
The amendment has been duly moved. Does any member wish to speak thereto? If not, the question is that the amendment stand part of the clause. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The amendment stands part of the clause. The question now is that Clause 3, as amended, stand part of the bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. The Clause 3, as amended, stand part of the bill.
Clause 4, repeal and substitution of Section 3, Order of the Cayman Islands. Clause 5, repeal and substitution of Section 4, National Honors and Awards Committee, and the insertion of Section 4A, appointment and duties of the Secretary. Clause 6, amendment of Section 5, duties of committee.
The question is that Clauses 4 to 6 do stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. Clauses 4 to 6 stands part of the bill.
Clause 7, repeal and substitution of Section 6, nomination and insertion of Section 6A, nomination, and Section 6B, substitution of nominees.
Honorable Premier, there is an amendment to Clause 7.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, can I just inquire before I read too much again. So I'm reading the whole of B, including the nomination refuse 6C.
Yes.
Correct. So, Mr. Chairman, in accordance with Standing Order 52.1 and 2, I give notice to move the following amendment to the National Honors and Awards Amendment Bill 2018 in Clause 7, as that the bill be amended as follows in Clause 7. Roman numeral 1, in the proposed Section 6A, by inserting after the word may the following words, in the time and manner prescribed. And Roman numeral 2, by inserting after the proposed Section 6B the following section, nominations refused. 6C, successful candidates shall be admitted to the various levels of the order in keeping with the nominations of the council, but a candidate whose nomination is refused by the council shall not be nominated to the order.
Amendment has been duly moved. Does anyone member wish to speak thereto? If not, the question is that amendment start part of the clause. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, the ayes have it. The amendment stands part of the clause. The question now is that clause 7 as amended stand part of the bill. All those in favor? Those against, the ayes have it. The question is that clause 7 as amended stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, the ayes have it. The clause as amended stands part of that bill.
Clause 8, repeal and substitution of Section 7, grant of award and insertion of Section 7A, quotas, Section 7B, special appointments, and 7C. What does that word? No, sorry.
Thank you.
Investitude.
Clause 8. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 52.1 and 2, I give notice to move the following amendments to the National Honors and Awards Amendment Bill 2018, that the bill be amended as follows in Clause 8, as follows. Roman numeral 1, in the proposed Section 7A as follows. Double A, in paragraph A, by deleting the word 5 and substituting the word 2. Double B, in paragraph B, by deleting the word 10 and substituting the word 3. And double C, in paragraph C, by deleting the word 4 and substituting the word 5. And Roman numeral 2, in the proposed Section 7B2 as follows. Double A, in paragraph B, by deleting the word 2 and substituting the word 1. And double B, in paragraph C, by deleting the word 4 and substituting the word 1.
Question is that the amendment has been duly moved. Does any member wish to speak thereto? The question is that the amendment stand part of the clause. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The amendment stands part of the clause. The question now is that clause 8 as amended stand part of the bill. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The question is that clause 8 as amended stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The clause as amended stands part of the bill.
Clause 9, amendment of Section 8, use of certificates and wearing of medals and insignia and insertion of Section 8A, motto, Section 8B, precedence of order, and when wearing insignia prohibited, and Section 8C, refusal, and 8D, termination of membership.
On 8, 9, 9. The question is that clause 9 do stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. Clause 9 stands part of the bill.
Clause 10, repeal and substitution of Section 10, regulations.
Honorable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 52(1) and 2, I give notice to move the following amendments to the National Honors and Awards Amendment Bill 2018, that the bill be amended as follows: by inserting after Clause 10 the following clause: insertion of Section 10A, validation. 10A, the principal law is amended by inserting after Section 10 the following section: validation. 10A, an award purporting to have been issued under this law at any time before the coming into force of this law is deemed for all purposes to have been validly issued.
The amendment has been duly moved. Does any member wish to speak thereto? The question is that the amendment that stand part of the clause. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? The amendment stands part of the clause. The question now is that clause 10 as amended stands part of the bill. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The question is that clause 10 as amended stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. The clause as amended stands part of the bill.
Clause 11, amendment of the schedule, procedure of the committee, and insertion of new schedules. Schedule 2, description of insignia, the ribbon and seal.
All those in favor of clause 11? Say aye.
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. Clause 11 do stands part of the bill.
A bill for law to amend the National Honors and Awards Law 2010, Law 20 of 2010, to reform the order of the Cayman Islands and for incidental and connected purposes.
The question is that the title do stands part of the bill. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? The title stands part of the bill.
The Anti-Corruption Amendment Bill 2018, Clause 1, short title. Clause 2, amendment of Section 2 of the Anti-Corruption Law 2018 revision, interpretation. Clause 3, amendment of Section 3C of the Anti-Corruption Law 2018 revision, investigation officers.
The question is that clauses 1 to 3 do stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Clauses 1 to 3 stands part of the bill.
A bill for a law to amend the Anti-Corruption Law 2018 revision to provide for the use of protective equipment by investigating officers and for incidental and connected purposes.
The question is that the title do stand part of the bill. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The title stands part of the bill.
The Cayman Islands Red Cross Bill 2018. Clause 1, short titling commencement. Clause 2, interpretation. Clause 3, incorporation of Cayman Islands Red Cross. Clause 4, objects and purposes. Clause 5, powers. Clause 6, constitution. Clause 7, establishment agreement.
Question is that clauses 1 to 7 do stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Clause 8, exemption from liability for officers.
There is an amendment by the Honorable AG.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, there was a previous committee stage amendment that was circulated in the bracket. I wish to withdraw that particular one and to instead proceed on one that is dated today, I think. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the provision of Standing Order 52.1 and 2, I give notice of I, Samuel W. Baldwin, Attorney General, ex officio member, give notice to move the following amendments to the Cayman Islands Red Cross Bill 2018. 1, that the bill be amended in Clause 8 in subclauses 1 and 3 by inserting after the word fraud, where it appears in those subclauses, the word negligence. Sorry.
The question, sorry, I was just checking to make sure that the Honorable AG had completed. Yes, the question is that the amendment has been duly moved. Yeah. Does any member wish to speak? The question is that the amendment stand part of the clause. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The amendment stands part of the clause. The question is now that the clause 8, as amended, stand part of the bill. The question is that clause all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The question is that clause 8, as amended, stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. The clause as amended stands part of the bill.
Clause 9, liability for debts
Debts of members,
sorry.
not debts.
Debt of members. Clause 10, vesting of property. Clause 11, execution of documents. Clause 12, evidence. Clause 13, status of Cayman Islands Red Cross. Clause 14, exemption from paying customs duties. Clause 15, savings. 9 to 15.
Question is that clauses 9 to 15 do stand part of the bill. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Clauses 9 to 15 stands part of the bill.
Schedule 1, the fundamental principles of the International Red Cross and Red Crescent Movement. Schedule 2, the Constitution of the Cayman Islands Red Cross, an overseas branch of the British Red Cross Society.
Question is that Schedule 1 and 2 stands part of the bill. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? Schedule 1 and 2 stands part of the bill.
Schedule 3, the establishment agreement of the British Red Cross Society and the Cayman Islands Red Cross.
I do have notice of an amendment from the Honorable Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in pursuant to Standing Order 52.1 and 2, I beg to move the following committee stage amendment. Namely, Mr. Speaker, that the bill be amended in Schedule 3 in paragraph 4.3 by deleting the words "for advice or support in developing its activities" and substituting the words "with suggestion regarding any policies or matters relevant to its work."
The amendment has been duly moved to the schedule. Does any member wish to speak thereto? The question is that the amendment stands part of the schedule. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The amendment stands part of the schedule. The question is now.
Schedule 3 as amended.
The question is now that Schedule 3 as amended stand part of the bill. All those in favor? Aye. Those against?
Schedule 3 stands part of the bill.
The question is that Schedule 3 stands part of the bill. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill for a law to provide for the incorporation of the Cayman Islands branch of the British Red Cross Society as the Cayman Islands Red Cross, to further and protect the activities of the Cayman Islands Red Cross, and to make provisions for incidental and connected matters.
Question is that the title do stand part of the bill. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? The title, therefore, part of the bill.
The Penal Code Amendment Bill 2018. Clause 1, short title. Clause 2, insertion of new section 45G into the Penal Code 2018 revision. Order applicable to prior acts, etc. Clause 3, insertion of new section 132A, assault by penetration. Clause 4, repeal and substitution of section 135, defilement of idiots and imbeciles.
Question is, clauses 1 to 4 do stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Clauses 1 to 4 stands part of the bill.
Clause 5, insertion of new sections 228E to 228L. Sexual communication with a child, arranging to meet a child following sexual communication, meeting the child following sexual communications, procurement of a child for his sexual activity, causing a child to watch a sexual activity, engaging in sexual activity in the presence of a child, inviting a child to participate in sexual activity, abuse of position of trust.
I have understanding there are some amendments to Clause 5.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the provision of Standing Order 52.1 and 2, Honorable Attorney General, give notice to make the following amendments, to move the following amendments to the Penal Code Amendment Bill 2018. Namely, Mr. Speaker, that the bill be amended in Clause 5 as follows. A, in the proposed section 228E, 2, bracket, by deleting the word "for" and substituting the word 6. B, in the proposed section 22(8)(f)(2), by deleting the word 4 and substituting the word 6. C, in the proposed section 228G(2), by deleting the word 4 and substituting the word 6. D, in the proposed section 228L, numeral 1, in subsection 2, by deleting the word 10 and substituting the word 12. Numeral 2, in subsection 3A, by deleting the word 4 and substituting the word 5. And the numeral 3, in subsection 3B, by deleting the word 6 and substituting the word 7. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The amendment has been duly moved. Does any member wish to speak thereto? The question is then that the amendment stand part of the clause. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The amendment stands part of the clause. The question now is that clause 5, as amended, stand part of the bill. All those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. The question is that clause 5 as amended stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The clause as amended stands part of the bill.
A bill for a law to amend the Penal Code 2018 revision to provide for the prospective application of sexual harm prevention orders, to provide for offenses in respect of sexual communication with a child, to provide for offenses in respect of sexual activities with a child, and for incidental and connected purposes.
The question is that the title do stand part of the bill. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The question is that the bills be reported to the House. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? Bills will now be reported to the House. Please be seated.
Report on bills. The National Honors Award Amendment Bill 2018.
The Honorable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I am to report that a bill entitled the National Honors Award Amendment Bill 2018 was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed with amendment.
The Anti-Corruption Amendment Bill 2018. I thought so too.
No. See, you're going to make a report to the House? As said about her reason. Yeah. I know. The bill has been reported and is set down for a third reading.
The Anti-Corruption Amendment Bill 2018.
The Honorable the Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to report that bill, with the short title, the Anti-Corruption Amendment Bill 2018, was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed without amendment.
The bill has been set down, it's been reported and is set down for a third reading.
Cayman Islands Red Cross Bill 2018.
The Honorable the Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to report that the bill, the short title, the Cayman Islands Red Cross Bill 2018, was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed with amendments.
The bill has been reported and is set down for a third reading.
The Penal Code Amendment Bill 2018.
The Honorable the Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm to report that the bill, the short title of which is the Penal Code Amendment Bill 2018, was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed with amendments.
The bill has been reported and is set down for a third reading.
Third readings. The National Honors Award Amendment Bill 2018.
The Honorable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the third reading of a bill entitled the National Honors Award Amendment Bill 2018.
The question is that a bill shortly entitled the National Honors Award Amendment Bill 2018 be given a third reading and passed. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The National Honors Awards Bill 2018 has been read a third time and is passed.
The Anti-Corruption Amendment Bill 2018.
The Honorable Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Anti-Corruption Amendment Bill 2018 be given a third reading and passed.
The question is that a bill shortly entitled the Anti-Corruption Amendment Bill 2018 be given a third reading and passed. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. The Anti-Corruption Amendment Bill 2018 has been read a third time and is passed.
The Cayman Islands Red Cross Bill 2018.
The Honorable Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Cayman Islands Red Cross Bill 2018 be given a third reading and passed.
The question is that a bill shortly entitled the Cayman Islands Red Cross Bill 2018 be given a third reading and passed. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, the ayes have it. The Cayman Islands Red Cross Bill 2018 has been read a third time and is passed.
The Penal Code Amendment Bill 2018.
The Honorable Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Penal Code Amendment Bill 2018 be given a third reading and passed.
The question is that a bill shortly entitled the Penal Code Amendment Bill 2018 be given a third reading and passed. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, the ayes have it. The Penal Code Amendment Bill 2018 has been read a third time and is passed.
Motions. Government motion number 1 of 2018-2019. Amendment to the Development Plan 1997. Proposed rezoning. Georgetown Central, Block 13D, Parcel 1, and West Bay Beach South, Block 13C, Parcel 1. To be moved by the Honorable Minister of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure.
The Honorable Minister of Commerce and Planning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move Government Motion Number 1, 2018-2019, Amendment to the Development Plan 1997, Proposed Rezoning, Georgetown Central, Block 13D, Parcel 1, and West Bay Beach South, Block 13C, Parcel 1. Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I will now read the motion.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Government Motion Number 1, 2018-2019, Amendment to the Development Plan 1997, Proposed Rezoning, Georgetown Central, Block 13D, Parcel 1, and West Bay Beach South, Block 13C, Parcel 1. Whereas, on the 30th of October 2013, the Central Planning Authority considered an application for the rezoning of part of Registration Section Georgetown Central, Block 13D, Parcel 1, and part of West Bay Beach South, Block 13C, Parcel 1, from public open space to high-density residential. And whereas the proposed amendments were duly advertised in the Cayman Compass on the 26th and the 28th of November 2013, and 2nd and 4th December 2013, in accordance with Section 11.2 of the Development and Planning Law 2011 revision as amended. And persons were invited to view the application at the Department of Planning for comment. During the comment period, no letters of objection or representations were received on the proposed amendments. And whereas, on the 16th of September 2015, the Central Planning Authority again reviewed the application in light of the public consultation process, CPA/19/15, item 3.1, and it was resolved to forward the proposed amendment to the Ministry of Planning, Lands, Agriculture, Housing, and Infrastructure with the recommendation that it be forwarded to the Cabinet and subsequently the Legislative Assembly for consideration. And whereas, on the 3rd November 2015, Cabinet considered the rezoning application and approved the matter be referred on to the Legislative Assembly for consideration. Be it now therefore resolved that in accordance in Section 10(2)(b) of the Development and Planning Law 2011 revision as amended, the Central Planning Authority hereby recommends and submits to the Legislative Assembly the following proposal for alteration to the Development Plan 1997, a summary and maps of which are attached hereto. And be it further resolved to alter the zoning area of part of registration section Georgetown Central Block 13D, Parcel 1, and a part of registration section West Bay Beach South Block 13C, Parcel 1, from public open space to high-density residential.
The question is that be it now therefore resolved that in accordance in Section 10.2b of the Development and Planning Law 2011 revision as amended, the Central Planning Authority hereby recommends and submits to the Legislative Assembly the following proposal for alteration to the Development Plan 1997, a summary and maps of which are attached hereto. And be it further resolved to alter the zoning area of part of registration section Georgetown Central Block 13D Parcel 1 and part of registration section West Bay Beach South Block 13C Parcel 1 from public open space to the high density residential. The motion is open for debate. Does the Honourable Minister wish to speak thereto?
Mr. Speaker, just by way of a quick explanation, the parcels together extend to approximately 66 acres and is intersected by the Esther Tibbetts Highway. The section of land to the east of the road, which is approximately 62.8 acres, is currently in use as the Georgetown landfill and its vegetation buffer. Construction of the Esther Tibbetts Highway bisected the parcel, leaving approximately 3.2 acres of the two parcels isolated west of the highway. The severed portions are zoned public open space as part of the buffer zone, but it is no longer considered appropriate now that the highway itself forms the physical western boundary of the landfill site. The surrounding zoning west of the highway is high-density residential, and this is considered a more appropriate zoning for the Crown's severed 3.2 acres of land now isolated west of the highway in this location. Mr. Speaker, on October the 30th, 2013, the Central Planning Authority considered an application from government to rezone part of Georgetown Central Block 13D, Parcel 1, and part of West Bay Beach South Block 13C, Parcel 1, from public open space to high-density residential. It resolved to forward the application to the Department of Planning for it to undertake the 60-day public notification and consultation period in accordance with Section 11.2 of the Development and Planning Law 2011 revision. During the comment period, no objections or representations were received, Mr. Speaker. On September 16, 2015, Mr. Speaker, the Central Planning Authority again considered the application in light of the public consultation process and resolved to forward the matter to the Ministry of Planning with the recommendation that the amendment to the development plan be forwarded to the Legislative Assembly for debate, subject to Cabinet approval. Mr. Speaker, on the 3rd of November 2015, Cabinet approved that the matter be referred to the Legislative Assembly for its consideration. Additional information supplied in support of the rezone application is as follows: a written summary of the rezoning application, 2 location maps illustrating the existing and proposed zoning. And Mr. Speaker, in closing, I ask for the support of the Honorable House to approve the rezoning of the severed part of Georgetown Central Block 13D, Parcel 1, and the severed part of West Bay Beach South Block 13C, Parcel 1, from public open space to high-density residential. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The motion has been moved. The motion is therefore open for debate. Does any member wish to speak thereto? If not, does the Honourable Mover wish to
Just to thank
Close.
the members of the House for their support. Thank you.
The question is that Be it now therefore resolved that in accordance in Section 10(2)B of the Development and Planning Law 2011 revision as amended, the Central Planning Authority hereby recommends and submits to the Legislative Assembly the following proposal for alteration to the Development Plan 1997, a summary and maps of which are attached hereto, and be it further resolved to alter the zoning area of parts of registration section Georgetown Central Block 13D Parcel 1 and part of registration section West Bay Beach South Block 13C Parcel 1 from public open space to high-density residential. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. Government motion number 1 is duly passed.
Government motion number 2 of 2018-2019, amendment to the Development Plan 1997, proposed rezoning, Bordentown Block 44B, Parcel 15, to be moved by the Honorable Minister of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure.
Honorable Minister of Planning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move Government Motion Number 2, 2018-2019, Amendment to the Development Plan 1997, Proposed Rezoning, Bordentown Block 44B, Parcels 15. And Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I'll read the motion.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Government Motion Number 2, 2018-2019, Amendment to the Development Plan 1997, Proposed Rezoning, Bordentown Block 44B, Parcel 15. Whereas, on the 26th of October 2016, the Central Planning Authority, CPA/23/16, Item 3.1, considered an application for the rezoning of registration section Bordentown, Block 44B, Parcel 15, from public open space to medium-density residential. And whereas the proposed amendments were duly advertised in the Cayman Compass on the 9th, 11th, 15th, and 17th of November 2016, in accordance with Section 11.2 of the Development and Planning Law 2015 revision as amended, and persons were invited to view the application at the Department of Planning for comment. During the comment period, no letter of objections or representation were received on the proposed amendment. And whereas, on the 15th of February 2017, the Central Planning Authority again reviewed the application in light of the public consultation process, CPA/04/17, Item 3.1, and it was resolved to forward the proposed amendment to the Ministry of Planning, Lands, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure, now the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure, with the recommendation that it be forwarded to Cabinet and subsequently the Legislative Assembly for consideration. And whereas on the 15th May 2018, Cabinet considered the rezoning application and approved the matter be referred on to the Legislative Assembly for consideration. Be it now therefore resolved that in accordance in Section 10(2)B of the Development and Planning Law 2011 revision as amended, the Central Planning Authority hereby recommends and submits to the Legislative Assembly the following proposal for alteration to the Development Plan 1997, a summary and maps of which are attached hereto. And be it further resolved to alter the zoning area of registration section Bordentown Block 44B, Parcel 15, from public open space to medium density residential.
Question is, be it now therefore resolved that in accordance in Section 10.2B of the Development and Planning Law 2011 revision as amended, the Central Planning Authority hereby recommends and submits to the Legislative Assembly the following proposal for alteration to the Development Plan 1997, a summary and maps of which are attached hereto, and be it further resolved to alter the zoning area of registration section Bordentown, Block 44B, Parcel 15, from public open space to medium-density residential. The motion is open for debate. Does the minister intend to speak thereto?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a quick explanation again. Block 44B, Parcel 15 is located on Bordentown Road, just over 250 feet east of the intersection with Mance Road. The undeveloped beach parcel was approved to be vested as a Crown grant to Domelita Powell and Abel Medina as administrators for the estate of Alice Carter and Adela Carter Medina in 2005. Ownership of the parcel has remained with the estate administrators since the vesting was completed in 2007. At the time of vesting, both parties were unaware that the seaside parcel was zoned public open space. This rezone proposal seeks to rectify the oversight by changing the zoning to medium-density residential as enjoyed by the adjoining parcels and to allow the land to be valued and developed appropriately if desired. Mr. Speaker, the Central Planning Authority heard the request initially on October 26, 2016 for an amendment to the 1997 Development Plan by rezoning public open space to medium-density residential. At this meeting, it was resolved to forward the proposal for the required 60-day public notice and advertising period as per Section 11.2 of the Development and Planning Law. The notice period commenced on November 17th, and no letters of objection were received over the period. The authority once again considered the proposal in light of the public consultation period on February 15, 2017, and it was resolved to forward the proposed amendments to the Ministry of Planning, Lands and Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure for onward transmission to the Legislative Assembly for review and consideration. Mr. Speaker, on the 15th of May 2018, Cabinet approved the proposal to amend the 1997 Development Plan be forwarded to the Legislative Assembly for consideration. Additional information supplied in support of this amendment request is as follows: a written summary of the rezoning application and 2 maps illustrating the existing and proposed rezoning of the parcel in the context of the surrounding land. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I ask for the support of this Honorable House to approve registration section Bordentown Block 44B, Parcel 15, as presently zoned public open space, be rezoned to medium-density residential. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question is, be it now therefore resolved that in accordance in Section 10.2B of the Development and Planning Law 2011 revision as amended, the Central Planning Authority hereby recommends and submits to the Legislative Assembly the following proposal for alteration to the Development Plan 1997, a summary and maps of which are attached hereto, and be it further resolved to alter the zoning area of registration section Bordentown, Block 44B, Parcel 15, from public open space to medium-density residential. Any member wishing to speak? If not, you frightened me, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to thank the members for their support on this motion.
The question is that be it now therefore resolved in accordance in Section 10.2B of the Development and Planning Law 2011 revision as amended, the Central Planning Authority hereby recommends and submits to the Legislative Assembly the following proposal for development to the Development Plan 1997, a summary and maps of which are attached hereto, and be it further resolved to alter the zoning area of registration section, Bordentown Block 44B, Parcel 15, from public open space to medium density residential. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, the ayes have it. Government motion number 2 of 2018 is duly passed. I think that the House will now suspend for Finance Committee and to await a report therefrom. The question is that a bill for a law to appropriate executive financial transactions for the financial period ended 31st December 2017 be submitted to Finance Committee for its perusal and for a report therefrom. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. I would like to call this meeting of Finance Committee to order and invite you to take your seats. Members of the committee, the purpose of this Finance Committee meeting is to consider the items shown in the schedule to the Supplementary Appropriation Bill for the 18-month financial period ended the 31st of December 2017, and also to consider a request for additional expenditures applicable to the current 2018 financial year. I am fully prepared to proceed with the deliberations and consideration this evening, but we're all aware that the opposition have chosen to absent themselves from the Assembly and from this meeting of Finance Committee today. And I do believe it's only fair that we give them a chance to be here to do their work in examining these appropriations and participating in the whole process. So it's my position that we will go ahead and suspend proceedings for the day, and that we will reconvene Finance Committee tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. when we can all be here to consider this appropriation bill and examine it. So if, with those words, I will go ahead at this time and suspend the committee for today, and we will reconvene tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m.